The great chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of floating crystal and light. Thousands of alien beings sat in their designated sections, each species more strange and powerful than the last. Some had bodies made of living metal. Others existed as clouds of intelligent gas. A few were so ancient that they had witnessed the birth of stars. This was the Galactic Council, the ruling body of known space. For 12,000 years, they had maintained peace and order across 1,000,000 worlds. They decided which species could travel between stars. They controlled trade, war, and the flow of knowledge itself. Today, they were about to meet the newest species to achieve faster-than-light travel. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the entrance of the chamber, her heart beating fast inside her chest. She was 43 years old, born in a small town in Argentina, and she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Behind her stood her small team of human diplomats, all of them trying very hard to look confident. The truth was that they were terrified. Humanity had only discovered how to travel faster than light 18 months ago. It had been an accident, really. A physics experiment had gone wrong in the best possible way. Suddenly, the stars were within reach. Within weeks of their first successful test flight, alien ships had appeared in Earth's solar system. The Luminari, a species of beings made of soft golden light, had come to deliver an invitation. Humanity was summoned to present itself before the Galactic Council. Elena took a deep breath and walked forward, the moment she stepped onto the speaking platform. She heard it. Laughter. Not loud, not obvious, but definitely there. Snickering from the left, where the Valkyrie sat with their glowing tentacles, amused clicks from the Drotharians, massive four-eyed creatures who looked like they could crush a tank with their bare hands. High, Chancellor Verthax sat on a throne that floated above the assembly. His body was made entirely of living crystal, and light bent strangely around him. He was over 9,000 years old, and he had seen countless species rise and fall. He looked at Elena the way someone might look at a puppy that had wandered into a business meeting. "The Terran Collective," Verthax announced, his voice echoing through translation devices, also known as humanity, "has requested membership in the Galactic Council." More laughter. This time, less hidden. Elena kept her face calm. She had expected this. Human intelligence services had gathered what information they could about the Council. They knew that humanity would not be taken seriously. They knew that other species saw them as primitive, weak, and unimportant. But they had come anyway. "Hi, Chancellor," Elena said, her voice steady, "on behalf of the 8 billion people of Earth. I thank you for this opportunity. We come in peace and friendship. We wish to learn from the great civilizations of the galaxy and to offer what humble contributions we can." Verthax leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, Ambassador, how old is your species?" "Modern humans have existed for approximately 300,000 years. Laughter erupted across the chamber. The Valkyrie representative nearly fell out of his seat. Even some of the more dignified species could not hide their amusement. 300,000 years, Verthax repeated slowly. "The Drotharian Empire was already ancient when your ancestors were learning to walk upright. The Crystalline Collective, my own people, were building cities between the stars, while your kind was discovering fire." He gestured to the assembly. "Every species in this chamber has existed for millions of years at minimum. Some of us remember the formation of the galaxies, and you, little humans, with your mayfly lifespans and your fragile bodies, wish to join us as equals." Elena did not flinch. "We do not expect to be treated as equals, High Chancellor. We simply ask for the chance to prove our worth." "Your worth," Verthax said, and the amusement in his voice was cruel. "Let us discuss your worth. Your individual members live for what, 80 years? Lest you require sleep for 1/3 of your existence? Your bodies are so fragile that a fall from a small height can kill you. You cannot survive in vacuum, in extreme heat, in extreme cold. You must constantly consume organic matter, or you die. You are, by any objective measure, one of the weakest sentient species ever to achieve space travel." He paused, letting his words sink in. Your technology is derivative. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are primitive. You have no psychic abilities, no natural armor, no special senses. You evolved from prey animals on a small planet in an unremarkable solar system. Chamber was silent now. Every alien I was fixed on Alina, waiting to see how she would respond to this humiliation. Alina took a slow breath. Everything you say is true, High Chancellor. This seemed to surprise Verthax slightly.
They are young,
Alina continued. We are fragile. We are mortal. We have none of the advantages that evolution has granted to the other species in this chamber. When we first looked up at the stars, we did not have the technology to reach them. We did not have the lifespans to wait for better technology. We did not have the natural abilities to survive in space. And yet we are here. The chamber remains silent. We are here because we refuse to accept our limitations. Every obstacle you mentioned, we overcame through determination and creativity. We cannot survive in vacuum, so we built suits and ships. We cannot live for thousands of years, so we pass our knowledge from generation to generation. We evolved as prey animals, so we learned to be clever, to cooperate, to never give up even when the predators were stronger. Verthax studied her for a long moment. Then he laughed, but it was not entirely unkind. You have spirit, little human. I will grant you that. He waved one crystalline hand. Very well. The Council will grant humanity's provisional observer status. This is the lowest classification, you understand. You may attend council sessions. You may watch and learn. You may not vote. You may not speak unless spoken to. He fixed her with his ancient gaze. Perhaps in 1,000 years, when you have proven yourselves, we will reconsider your status. Until then, try not to embarrass yourselves. Lena bowed deeply. Thank you, High Chancellor. We will not waste this opportunity. As she turned to leave, she passed by the section where the Luminari sat. Ambassador Kiraset, the being of golden light who had first contacted humanity, reached out and touched Elena's arm gently. They underestimate you, Kiraset whispered. We Luminari were once dismissed, just as you are now. It took us 50,000 years to earn respect, but I sense something different about your kind. Something that the others cannot see. Alina looked at the ancient being. What do you sense? Kiraset's light flickered thoughtfully. Hunger, not for power or territory. Hunger to prove that you belong. That hunger can be dangerous, but it can also move mountains and shake the foundations of empires. Alina said nothing. But as she walked out of the great chamber, past the sneering faces and contemptuous glances, she allowed herself one small smile. Let them laugh, she thought. Let them underestimate us. Humanity had been underestimated before. By nature, by disease, by every obstacle that had ever stood in their way, and humanity was still here. 3 months passed after humanity's humiliating introduction to the galaxy. Alina Vasquez attended council sessions as required, sitting in the small section assigned to observer species. She watched. She learned. She sent reports back to Earth. The other species mostly ignored her. Sometimes they made jokes at humanity's expense. Alina pretended not to notice. Then, on a day that seemed like any other, everything changed. The emergency signal came during a routine trade discussion. Every screen in the council chamber suddenly went dark. Then a single image appeared. A planet. Velkar Prime, the home world of the Velkari Empire, one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. The planet was burning. No, Alina realized as she watched. Not burning. Disappearing. Something was covering the world like a shadow. And wherever the shadow touched, everything simply stopped existing. Cities vanished. Oceans dried up in seconds. 12 billion Velkari. Gone in the time it took to draw a breath, the Velkari representative in the chamber made a sound that Alina would never forget. A scream of pure grief that came from somewhere deeper than his throat. His bioluminescent tentacles went gray as he collapsed. High Chancellor Verthax rose from his throne. His crystalline body was flickering in a way that Alina had never seen before. It took her a moment to realize what she was seeing. Fear, the ancient being was afraid. What is this? Someone demanded. What weapon could do this? The answer came from one of the oldest beings in the chamber, a creature called the Keeper of Records, who existed partly outside of normal time. Its voice was like dust and starlight. "The harvesters," the keeper said. "They have returned." Silence fell over the chamber. Alina did not recognize the name, but she could see that everyone else did. The fear spread through the room like a disease. "That is impossible," Verthax said, but his voice lacked conviction. "The harvesters are legend, myth, stories told to frighten children." "I was there," the keeper said. 4 billion years ago when they last came. I watched them consume everything. Every civilization, every world, every thinking mind. They fed until there was nothing left. Then they slept, satisfied, in the void between galaxies." The keeper's form flickered. "They are awake now, and they are hungry." Over the next weeks, the impossible became reality. World after world went dark. The harvesters were not a single creature, but many, a swarm of living darkness that seemed to exist partially outside of normal space. They moved through the galaxy like a plague. Nothing could stop them. The Drotharian Empire, the most powerful military force in known space, gathered their entire fleet to defend their home system. 4,000 warships, each one capable of destroying a planet. They were the pride of a civilization that had never known defeat. Alina watched the battle footage along with the rest of the council. The Drotharian fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams powerful enough to crack moons. Missiles carrying antimatter warheads. Weapons that humanity could barely comprehend. The harvesters did not even slow down. The attacks passed through them like light through smoke. Then the darkness reached out, touched the nearest ship, and the ship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, erased the entire Drotharian. Fleet was gone in 6 minutes. The Admiral's final transmission played in the silent chamber. His voice was calm, even as his ship disappeared around him. "They do not fight as we fight. They do not exist as we exist. We cannot hurt them. We cannot even touch them. May the gods have mercy on us all." Panic spread through the galaxy. Species that had been enemies for millions of years suddenly forgot their differences. Ancient feuds were set aside. Everyone was too busy dying to fight each other. The council held emergency session after emergency session. Scientists from 100 worlds worked together, trying to understand the harvesters, trying to find a weakness. They learned that the creatures fed on consciousness itself. They consumed thinking minds, drew power from sentient awareness. The more intelligent a species, the more appealing they were as prey. This explained why the harvesters ignored uninhabited worlds, why automated defenses sometimes worked briefly. The creatures could only perceive beings that were conscious. They hunted thoughts, but this knowledge did not help. Knowing how a predator hunts does not stop it from hunting. Species began to flee. Some tried to hide in the empty spaces between stars. Others attempted to reach distant galaxies. A few, in desperation, tried to negotiate with the harvesters. The negotiations lasted 3 seconds before the negotiators ceased to exist. Alina attended every council session. Taking notes, sending reports to Earth, she watched the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy crumble into despair. She saw beings who had lived for millions of years weep like children as they received news of their home, world's destruction. During one session, as the council debated yet another futile strategy, someone mentioned humanity. "What about the humans?" the Luminary ambassador asked. "They have been granted observer status. Protocol requires that we ask for their input." Versailles laughed, but there was no humor in it. The sound was hollow and broken. The humans. What could they possibly offer? They have barely left their own solar system. They have a handful of ships. Their weapons are toys compared to what we have already tried. "Protocol requires it," Kiraset repeated gently. Verthax waved his hand dismissively. "Fine. Send them the summons. At least it will give us something to laugh about before the end." Alina received the summons 1 hour later. As she read it, she felt something stir in her chest. Not hope exactly. Something older. something that her ancestors had felt when they faced saber-toothed cats with nothing but sticks and stones defiance. She immediately contacted Earth. The response came within minutes. Humanity had been watching the situation closely. They had been working on something. It was not ready, not tested, probably insane, but it was something. Alina arrived at the council chamber the next day. For once, no one laughed at her. They were too tired, too scared, too broken to mock anyone. Verthax looked at her with eyes that had lost their ancient arrogance. Ambassador Vasquez, do you have anything to offer? Any insight? Any idea, no matter how small? Alina stood tall. We have been studying the harvesters since the first attack. We have a proposal. She paused, looking around at the desperate faces of beings who had once considered her species beneath notice.
Us.
It will require all of you to trust us. It will require resources we do not have. And it will require your bravest volunteers to do something that will seem absolutely insane. Vorthax leaned forward. The mockery was gone from his voice entirely. At this point, Ambassador, we will try anything. Lena nodded. Then let me tell you about the Orpheus Protocol. The council chamber fell completely silent as Alina began to explain. The harvesters hunt consciousness, she said. They perceive the universe through the minds of thinking beings. When they reach for a target, they are reaching for the thoughts inside it. This is why your automated defenses work briefly. Machines have no minds to detect. Verthax nodded slowly. We know this. We have tried drone fleets, but drones cannot adapt, cannot think creatively. The harvesters simply ignore them while they consume everything else. Exactly, Alina said. You need thinking minds to fight effectively. But thinking minds are exactly what the harvesters can detect and destroy. Unless those minds are not there when the harvesters reach for them. Confusion spread across the chamber. I do not understand, the Drotharian delegate said. His species had lost everything. He had nothing left but the desperate hope that someone might offer a way forward. Elena pulled up, display showing human brain scans. Humans have a unique relationship with consciousness. Our brains can be temporarily shut down and restarted. We call it clinical death. For short periods, we can exist without any brain activity at all. No thoughts. No consciousness. Nothing for the harvesters to detect. She changed the display to show medical equipment. On Earth, we have developed technology that can stop a human heart, cease all brain function, and then restart everything after a set period. The process is traumatic. It carries risks. But we have been doing it in emergency medical situations for over a century. Kiraset's golden form flickered with sudden understanding. You mean to fight the harvesters while dead? Yes, Elena said simply. We call it the Orpheus Protocol, named after a figure from our mythology who traveled to the land of the dead and returned. She brought up tactical diagrams. Human pilots will operate in rotating shifts. 3 minutes conscious, 7 minutes clinically dead. During their conscious periods, they will pilot their ships, make tactical decisions, fire weapons. Then they will die, becoming invisible to the harvesters. Another pilot will awaken in a different location, take control of the battle, then die in turn. The chamber erupted in chaos. A dozen species began speaking at once. Some called the plan brilliant. Others called it insane. Most could not decide which. Verthax raised his hand for silence. Let me understand this correctly. You are proposing to send your people into battle against the greatest threat the galaxy has ever faced, and your strategy is to have them kill themselves repeatedly. Yes, and you believe this will work? Alina met his gaze steadily. I believe it gives us a chance, which is more than anything else is offered. The Valkyrie scientist, one of the few survivors of his species, stepped forward. The biology is questionable. Even if humans can survive repeated clinical death, the psychological damage would be severe. The trauma of dying over and over would break any mind. You are correct, Alina admitted. We expect significant psychological casualties. We have been honest with our volunteers about this. They know what they are signing up for. Volunteers? Verthax asked. How many humans would agree to such madness? Alina touched her communication device. A new display appeared, showing recruitment numbers from Earth. The numbers were updating in real time, climbing higher every second. As of this morning, we have 14 million volunteers. That number grows by approximately 50,000 every hour. The chamber went silent again. 14 million, Verthax repeated slowly. 14 million of your people have agreed to die repeatedly, to face certain psychological trauma, to fight creatures that have destroyed entire civilizations. Yes. Why? Alina considered the question carefully. Because we are afraid, she finally said. And because being afraid has never stopped us before. She stepped closer to the council assembly. You called us prey animals. You were right. For most of our existence, we were hunted. Everything on our planet was faster, stronger, or more deadly than we were. We survived because we learned that fear is not weakness. Fear is information. Fear tells you that something is dangerous. What you do with that information is what matters. She gestured to the recruitment numbers still climbing on the display. Every one of those volunteers is afraid. They know they might die permanently. They know they might come back broken. They know the odds are against them. And they signed up anyway. Because being human means accepting that you are small and fragile and mortal, and then choosing to fight anyway.
Ow.
The Drotharian delegate stood. His massive form seemed somehow smaller than before, humbled by loss. Even if your people can do this, even if the Orpheus Protocol works as you describe, you do not have enough ships. You do not have enough weapons. What can a few million humans do against a threat that consumed 4,000 Drotharian warships? That is why we need your help, Alina said. We have the pilots. We have the willingness to sacrifice. But we need your technology, your shipyards, your weapons. Everything you can provide. She looked around the chamber. I am asking every surviving civilization to give us everything you have left. Not to command, not to control, just to use. We will do the dying. We just need the tools. Verthax was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different than Alina had ever heard it. Stripped of arrogance, stripped of contempt, just an ancient being facing the end of everything he had known. If we do this, he said slowly, if we give you our remaining resources, our technology, our trust, what guarantee do we have that it will work? What guarantee do we have that humanity will not simply flee with what we give them? Alina did not hesitate. None. The word hung in the air. You have no guarantee, Alina continued. You have only our word. The word of a species you have known for less than 2 years. The word of creatures you consider primitive and short-lived and weak. She paused. But you have seen what the alternatives are. You have seen your fleets destroyed, your worlds consumed, your people erased. We are offering you something you do not have right now. We are offering you hope. She straightened her shoulders. My people have a saying. It is better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. But we have another saying too. While there is life, there is hope. The harvesters want to take both from us, our lives and our hope. I say we do not let them. The council voted that night. It was not unanimous. Some species refused to believe that humans could succeed where they had failed. Some could not bring themselves to trust such a young race with the fate of the galaxy. Some had simply given up, but enough voted yes. Within days, resources began flowing to human shipyards. Technology that humanity had only dreamed of was shared freely. Alien engineers worked alongside human scientists, adapting advanced weapon systems for human use, and on Earth, the volunteers continued to arrive. Ordinary people from every nation, every background, every walk of life, teachers and farmers and engineers and artists, all of them scared, all of them determined. General Marcus Chen, the man chosen to lead the human fleet, addressed his troops on the day before they departed. You all know what we are about to do, he said. You all know the risks. Many of you will not come back. Many of you will come back changed. Some of you will die so many times that you lose count. He paused, looking out at the sea of human faces. But when the history of the galaxy is written, when the story of this moment is told across 10,000 worlds, this is what they will say. They will say that when darkness came for the universe, humanity stood up. Not because we were the strongest, not because we were the oldest, not because we had the best chance, but because we refused to sit down. He raised his fist. Orpheus Protocol. We go into death, and we come back fighting. The cheer that rose from 14 million throats shook the stars. Themselves, the battle of the Luminari's threshold began on a day that had no morning. The Luminari home system was one of the last major civilizations still standing. Beyond it lay the core worlds of the galaxy, where billions more waited in terror. If the threshold fell, nothing would stop the harvesters from consuming everything. General Marcus Chen sat in the command chair of the UES Lazarus, flagship of the human fleet. Around him, thousands of ships waited in formation. They were a strange mix of human designs and alien technology. Weapons that humanity could barely understand mounted on frames that human hands had built. Inside each ship, human crews prepared for something that no other species had ever attempted. Begin Orpheus sequence, Chen ordered. Across the fleet, 14 million humans connected themselves to the neural interfaces that would kill them on command. Medical systems powered up. Automatic revival protocols activated. In 3 minutes, every human in the fleet would die for the first time. They would not stay dead for long. Chen looked at the tactical display. The harvesters filled the screen, a darkness so vast that it blocked out entire star clusters. They were not ships in any normal sense. They were more like holes in reality, places where the universe simply stopped. Looking at them made the eyes hurt, made the mind recoil. The alien fleet hung back behind the human formation. Verthax had insisted on bringing the remaining council forces to support the attack. It was mostly symbolic. Everyone knew that conventional weapons would not hurt the harvesters. But the alien ships carried something else. Survivors, refugees, the last members of dozens of species that had nowhere else to go. They would watch humanity's gamble succeed or fail. Harvester Vanguard approaching, the tactical officer reported. Contact in 2 minutes. Chen took a deep breath. All pilots prepare for first rotation. Remember your training. 3 minutes alive, 7 minutes dead. Trust the system. Trust each other. He felt the neural interface hum against his skull. In 90 seconds, it would stop his heart, shut down his brain, kill him as completely as any weapon could, and then 7 minutes later, it would bring him back. 30 seconds to contact. The harvesters reached out. Tendrils of living darkness extended toward the human fleet, sensing the bright, burning consciousness inside each ship. They were hungry. They had been feeding for months, but they were always hungry. Orpheus Protocol engaged. Marcus Chen died. For 7 minutes, there was nothing. No thoughts. No dreams. No awareness of any kind. Just complete and absolute absence of existence. Then he woke up. The first thing he saw was chaos. The tactical display showed harvester tendrils passing through the space where human ships had been. But the ships were moving now, controlled by the other rotation of pilots who had awakened while Chen was dead. The harvesters grabbed at minds that were no longer there, confused by prey that kept appearing and disappearing. Rotation Alpha, taking control, a voice said in Chun's ear. Captain Sarah Wong, commanding the second rotation. General Chen, welcome back to life. Chen blinked away the disorientation. Coming back from death was not easy. His body felt strange, disconnected. His thoughts were slow, but he did not have time to recover. Status report. The protocol is working, sir. The harvesters cannot lock onto us. Every time they reach for a pilot, that pilot dies and a different one wakes up somewhere else. They are confused. On the display, Chen could see it happening. Human ships darted through the harvesters' swarm like fish through water. The great darkness reached for them again and again, but always grabbed empty space. For the first time in months, the harvesters were not winning. Begin attack sequence, Chen ordered. The human ships opened fire, but they were not using conventional weapons. Human scientists, working with alien engineers, had developed something new. They called them consciousness torpedoes. Each torpedo contained an artificial mind, a simple awareness built from recorded human brain patterns, designed to burn bright and hot. The harvesters were drawn to consciousness. They could not resist consuming it. But these artificial minds were not defenseless. They were loaded with something special: memories, emotions, the concentrated experiences of millions of humans who had volunteered to have their happiest moments recorded. Love, joy, hope, connection. The feelings that humans experienced when they held their children, married their partners, achieved their dreams, all of it compressed into packages of pure positive consciousness. The first torpedo hit a harvester directly. The creature screamed. It was not a sound in any normal sense. It was a psychic shriek that echoed through the minds of every conscious being in the sector. The harvesters had evolved to consume isolated minds touched by fear and despair. They had no defense against concentrated joy, no ability to process love. The positive emotions burned through them like acid. The harvester dissolved into nothing. All ships, continue firing, Chen ordered. Pour everything into them. The battle became a dance of death and resurrection. Human pilots died and awoke, died and awoke. Each death a tactical maneuver. They wove through the harvester swarm in patterns that no conscious strategy could predict. Because there was no continuous consciousness to predict, Chen died again, and again, and again. Each time, he came back a little more tired, a little more confused. The process was taking its toll. He could feel parts of himself fraying at the edges, but he kept fighting. Around him, other humans were doing the same. Ordinary people who had been teachers and farmers and shopkeepers a few months ago. Now they were warriors dancing with death, killing themselves over and over to save a galaxy that had laughed at them. Some did not come back. The revival process was not perfect. For every 100 deaths, 1 or 2 remained permanent. Chen saw the notification markers appear on his display. Names of pilots who would not wake again. He pushed the grief aside. There would be time to mourn later. If there was a later, the harvesters began to retreat. At first, Chen did not believe it. These were creatures that had consumed entire civilizations. They did not retreat. They did not know fear, but they were afraid now. The human fleet pursued, pouring consciousness torpedoes into the fleeing darkness. Each hit destroyed another harvester. Each destroyed harvester meant one less monster to threaten the galaxy. On the flagship of the alien fleet, Orthox watched in stunned silence. His ancient eyes had seen many things over 9,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had seen wonders that defied description. He had never seen anything like this. "They are winning," Kiraset said softly beside him. "The humans are actually winning." Orthox could not speak. He could only watch as the species he had dismissed as primitive and weak drove the harvesters back through sheer stubborn refusal to stay dead. The battle lasted 18 hours. In that time, Marcus Chen died 47 times. Some of his pilots died over 100 times. The psychological damage was enormous. Many would never fully recover, but when it was over, the Harvester Vanguard was destroyed. Thousands of the creatures had been eliminated. For the first time since the nightmare began, Galaxy had won a victory. Chen sat in his command chair, too exhausted to move. His body ached. His mind felt like it had been scraped raw. He had died more times in one day than he could count, and some part of him was still not sure that he was really alive now. A communication came through from the alien fleet. Verthax's face appeared on the screen. The ancient crystal being looked different somehow, humbled. "General Chen," Verthax said, "I do not have words for what I have witnessed today. I have lived for 9,000 years. I have never seen such courage, such sacrifice, such magnificent stubbornness in the face of impossible odds." Chen managed a weak smile. "We are not done yet, Chancellor. This was just the first battle. The harvesters still exist in vast numbers. The war is far from over, an Overthek said. But for the first time, I believe we might actually win it. He paused. I owe you an apology, General. I owe your entire species an apology. We mocked you. We dismissed you. We were wrong. Chen shook his head slowly. No apology necessary, Chancellor. Just keep sending us ships and weapons. We have more dying to do. He closed the communication and leaned back in his chair. Around him, the survivors of the first rotation were being revived. Some were crying. Some were laughing. Some were doing both at the same time. They had died for the galaxy today. Many times over, and they would do it again tomorrow. The Harvester War lasted 3 years. 4 months and 18 days. When it finally ended, the galaxy was a different place. Entire regions of space lay empty, monuments to civilizations that had been consumed before humanity entered the fight. Species that had existed for millions of years were now reduced to a few thousand survivors. The scars would take generations to heal, but the harvesters were gone. Driven back into the void between galaxies, their numbers destroyed. Their hunger finally met by something they could not consume. The cost had been terrible. Of the 14 million humans who had volunteered for the Orpheus Protocol, over 2 million had died permanently. Many more carried psychological wounds that would never fully heal. Soldiers who had died hundreds of times, who had felt their consciousness slip away over and over, who had to relearn what it meant to be alive every time they woke up. They were called the Returned. They were honored as the greatest heroes in galactic history. Many of them did not feel like heroes. They felt tired, broken, changed in ways they could not explain to anyone who had not experienced what they had experienced. But they had one ambassador. Elena Vasquez stood once again in the great chamber of the Galactic Council. 3 years had passed since she had first walked onto the speaking platform and been met with laughter. So much had changed since then. This time, when she entered, every being in the chamber stood. It was a sign of respect that had never been given to any species in council. History High Chancellor Verthax descended from his floating throne and approached her directly. His crystalline body glowed with light that seemed somehow warmer than before. The contempt that had once marked his features was gone entirely. Ambassador Vasquez, he said, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. On behalf of the Galactic Council, on behalf of every species that survives today because of your people's sacrifice, I offer our deepest gratitude and our most sincere apologies. Lena bowed her head slightly. High Chancellor, no apology is necessary. We did what anyone would do, No Verthax said firmly. That is not true. We all faced the same threat. We all had the same choices, but only humanity chose to do what you did. Only humanity found the courage to face death itself and make it into a weapon. He turned to address the full assembly. 3 years ago, humanity came to this chamber as newcomers. We dismissed them as primitive. We mocked their short lifespans, their fragile bodies, their young civilization. We thought we knew what strength looked like. His voice grew heavier. We were fools. The chamber remained absolutely silent. The Drotharian Empire had the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. They fell in 6 minutes. The Valkyrie had technology beyond anything humanity had ever seen. They were erased in hours. Every advantage we thought we had meant nothing against the harvesters. Verthax looked at Alina. And then humanity came forward with a plan so insane that most of us thought it was a joke. Kill themselves repeatedly to fight creatures that consume consciousness? Send their people into battle knowing that each of them would die dozens, hundreds of times. We thought they were mad. He paused. We were wrong. They were not mad. They were brave. Brave in a way that most of us had forgotten was possible. The Luminary Ambassador Kiraset stepped forward. Her golden light filled the space around her. I remember the first time I met Ambassador Vasquez. I told her that the Council underestimated humanity. But even I did not understand what humans were truly capable of. She turned to face the assembly. The Returned gave something that cannot be measured. Not just their lives, though. Many gave that too. They gave their peace. their sanity, their sense of self. Every time they died and came back, they lost something that could never be replaced. And they did it willingly. Not for glory, not for power, but because it was the right thing to do. The council voted that day on a matter that had never been considered before. Humanity was granted a permanent seat on the High Council, not observer status, not provisional membership, full representation. Equal to the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, it was the fastest such promotion in history. It was also unanimous. After the formal ceremony, Lena found herself standing at the great windows of the chamber, looking out at the stars. Verthax approached her quietly. "You seem troubled," he observed. Alina shook her head slowly. "Not troubled. Just thinking about what? About what this cost us." She was quiet for a moment. 2 million dead. Permanently dead. Millions more who will never be the same. I went to visit some of the returned last month. Men and women who died so many times that they lost count. Some of them cannot sleep anymore because they are afraid they will not wake up. Some of them cannot feel joy anymore because they used up all their positive emotions as weapons against the harvesters. She turned to face the ancient being. "We won, but I am not sure we understand yet what we lost." Verthax was silent for a long moment. "You are wise to think of this," he finally said. "Victory often hides costs that only become clear later. But I want to tell you something that I have learned over 9,000 years of existence." He gestured at the stars outside the window. "The universe is not kind. It does not care about the suffering of small beings on small worlds. It does not reward courage or punish cruelty. It simply exists, vast and indifferent." "That is not very comforting," Elena said. "Let me finish," Verthax replied. "The universe does not care, but we do. Every conscious being in this chamber, every species that survives today, every child who will be born in the centuries to come because the harvesters did not consume us all, we care, and we will remember." He placed one crystalline hand gently on her shoulder. "Your people will be honored for 10,000 years. Monuments will be built. Songs will be sung. Stories will be told. The returned will be remembered as the greatest heroes the galaxy has ever known. That cannot undo their suffering, but it can ensure that their suffering meant something." Elena looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, the void between galaxies stretched cold and empty. The harvesters waited in that darkness, wounded but not destroyed. Perhaps one day they would return, but if they did, they would find the galaxy ready. They would find species who had learned to work together. They would find civilizations that knew what it meant to fight for something greater than themselves, and they would find humanity. Still fragile, still mortal, still afraid, still refusing to give up. Alina smiled slightly. "You know what I think the real lesson of all this is? Tell me. 3 years ago, you listed all the reasons humanity was weak. Short lifespans. Fragile bodies. We evolved from prey animals. We need sleep. We need food. We can be killed by falling from a small height." She turned to face him fully. "All of that is still true. We have not changed. We are still small and breakable and mortal, but that was never the point. Then what is the point? The point is that we know we are small. We know we are breakable. We know we are mortal, and we do incredible things anyway." She looked back at the stars. Every human achievement in history was accomplished by beings who knew they could fail, who knew they could die, who knew the universe did not care about their dreams or their struggles. And they tried anyway. She straightened her shoulders. "That is what makes us human, not our strength, not our technology, not our lifespan. Our willingness to look at impossible odds and say, 'Not today.' Our refusal to accept that limitations mean defeat." Verthax was quiet for a very long time. "Ambassador Vasquez," he finally said, "I have lived for 9,000 years. I have witnessed wonders and horrors beyond counting. But I believe the most remarkable thing I have ever witnessed is the spirit of your species." He bowed deeply, in gesture of respect that a High Chancellor had not given to anyone in living memory. The galaxy mocked humanity for being mortal, for being afraid, for being weak. He straightened and met her eyes. We will never make that mistake again. Outside the great windows, the stars burned in the infinite dark. The same stars that had watched humanity crawl from caves, discover fire, reach for the sky, and refuse to accept that the universe was too big for them. The harvesters had learned what other predators had learned across human history: never underestimate the prey that refuses to be hunted, never dismiss the small creature that fights back, never mock the species that turned its own mortality into a weapon. The galaxy had a new saying now. It's taught in schools across 1,000 worlds. When the darkness comes, call the humans. They know how to die, and more importantly, they know how to get back up.